Hey there, Lana here. I wanted to create this episode because over the past 13 years, I've sat with hundreds of people in sessions filled with heartbreak, confusion, and the emotional wreckage that comes from one of the most painful dynamics I have ever witnessed: the empath and narcissist relationship. I've watched people doubt their intuition, question their worth, twist themselves into knots trying to feel safe or seen or simply loved. I've held space for people who gave everything and were left with almost nothing. And I've lived through it too. This pattern, it's not just about difficult relationships. It's not just about one person being toxic and the other being too sensitive. It's deeper than that. It's an energetic pattern. It's a soul contract. And it's one I believe many of us chose not to suffer, but to wake up. This episode is for the ones who felt lost in love, for the ones who've bent and broken and blamed themselves, and are finally ready to see it for what it is: a turning point. Because there is a way out of victim consciousness, and it starts with a shift in perspective. Today we're talking about why these relationships form and what they're really here to teach us, the strengths we build through betrayal, gaslighting, and collapse, why this dynamic is so widespread right now, and what it mirrors in the collective, how we move from empathic collapse into energetic sovereignty, and how to create resonance-based relationships that don't require you to lose yourself to keep love. This is not about blame. It's not about shame. It's not about diagnosing anyone or turning pain into an identity. It's about truth. It's about choice. It's about finally seeing yourself clearly, not as someone who was broken, but as someone whose soul chose to evolve. You're not here to keep giving yourself away. You're here to remember who you are. So let's begin. So let's start with something that might stretch your mind, but could free your heart. What if the most painful relationship in your life was one your soul chose? Not to punish you, not because you needed a lesson, but because you were ready to remember your power. In this lifetime, or maybe before it, you made an agreement, a soul contract. You said, I want to learn how to trust myself. I want to remember that love doesn't require self-abandonment. I want to reclaim my truth, even if it means losing everything that isn't aligned with it. And then you met them, or you were born to them, but they came into your world. The one who said all the right things, but lived as a mirror of confusion. The one who drew you in, made you feel seen, only to gaslight, manipulate, and slowly unravel your sense of self. And somewhere deep inside, it wasn't just about them. It was about something ancient, something your soul came here to untangle. These relationships aren't random. They're initiations. And it doesn't mean what happened was okay. It doesn't justify the pain, but it does help explain why it cracked you open so deeply. Because the soul doesn't evolve through ease. Sometimes it evolves through the contrast. The narcissist-empath dynamic is one of the clearest expressions of this contrast. Control versus connection, self-absorption versus over-accommodation, survival versus sensitivity. And when those energies collide, they don't create balance. They create chaos, which, when seen through the lens of consciousness, can become catalyst. These relationships teach you things no textbook ever could. They teach you how to trust your inner voice, even when someone's trying to rewrite your reality, to hold boundaries that don't require anger to activate, to speak your truth without apology, to stop explaining yourself just to be understood. They teach you that love without respect isn't love, that peace without truth is just silence, that healing doesn't mean you stay. It means you remember you're allowed to leave. So, if you've been through it, if you're still in the rubble, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not broken. You are awakening. You are walking out of the fire, carrying the medicine only this kind of pain can make. And you don't have to carry the story anymore. You just have to carry the wisdom. So, what happens after the heartbreak? After the gaslighting, the self-doubt, the years of overgiving? What's left when the relationship ends and all you're left holding is yourself? That's where the alchemy begins. Because these dynamics, as painful, confusing, and shattering as they are, they forge something in you. Something strong, something clear, something sacred. And no, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens in layers. The moment you stop replaying the arguments in your head, the moment you finally say no, not to hurt them, but to honor yourself, the moment you realize that being the good one doesn't mean you have to carry the weight of it all. That's alchemy. That's when the pain starts turning into power. You start noticing patterns you used to miss. You start recognizing energy before it becomes entanglement. You stop merging. You stop over-explaining. You stop negotiating your truth for crumbs of validation. You begin to see clearly. That's the gift inside the wound. Not that it happened, but that you grew from it, that you chose to evolve instead of staying stuck in the story. You learn how to feel without drowning, care without collapsing, love without losing yourself, and speak without shrinking. You learn how to hold your center even when someone else is spinning. You stop waiting to be rescued. You realize you are the rescue. You're the one you were always waiting for. I've watched so many people walk through this fire, some in silence, some in therapy, some in ceremony, some in their journal at 2 a.m. And I can tell you, the moment you stop trying to change the other person, the moment you turn that energy inward, that's the moment everything shifts. You stop feeding the loop. You stop responding to distortion. You stop being available for anything that asks you to abandon yourself. You didn't deserve the pain, but you deserve what it made you become. And that version of you, the one with boundaries, voice, clarity, and no desire to play small, they're the one who ends the cycle. And not just for you, for your lineage, for your children, for the collective field. Because when one empath remembers their sovereignty, the whole grid gets stronger. And that's the real alchemy. So why does it feel like this dynamic is everywhere? Why are so many sensitive, empathic, big-hearted humans finding themselves in relationships with people who seem emotionally unavailable, manipulative, or just energetically overpowering? It's not just you, and it's not just them. It's the collective field we've been living in, and it's shifting. See, this dynamic, the empath and the narcissist, it's a micro pattern of a macro system. It's the personal version of a planetary imbalance, control over connection, power over presence, dominate or disappear. And empaths, the feelers, the fixers, the deeply intuitive souls, have been absorbing that imbalance for generations. Not because we're weak, but because we were born into systems that didn't know how to hold our sensitivity as strength. So what happens? We overadapt, we overgive, we bend to survive. We get really good at managing other people's emotions and really disconnected from our own. Meanwhile, those operating from narcissistic wounding, they often learned that vulnerability equals danger, that control equals safety, and that image matters more than intimacy. Not because they're evil, but because they've built a fortress around a wound they were never allowed to feel. So, these two energies collide. One absorbs, one avoids. One collapses, one controls. And for a while, it feels like chemistry. But it's actually karma. It's the energy of the old world. And right now, that energy is surfacing to be completed. Because we are in a frequency shift. The earth is changing. Our nervous systems are upgrading. Our relationships are being recalibrated. And this pattern, this loop, can't survive in the new frequency. Because the new human empath, they're not here to perform worthiness. They're not here to rescue or be rescued. They're here to embody truth, to feel without fusing, to love without losing themselves. So if you're noticing this pattern show up more in your past, your family, your dating life, it's not because something's wrong with you. It's because you're ready to see it, to end it, to step out of survival patterns that were never yours to begin with. And the moment you do, you stop being available for that frequency. You don't even have to push it away. It just doesn't resonate anymore. Because when your field is sovereign, distortion can't hook into you. That's the shift. That's why this dynamic is so loud right now. Because we're not collapsing into it anymore. We're closing the loop. So what does the shift actually look like? What does it mean to move from being the empath who collapses under everyone else's energy to becoming the one who stands, clear, whole, and sovereign in their field? Let's talk about it. Because this is where the pattern ends. This is where you stop trying to manage the pain and start moving as the frequency. Empathic collapse is real. It's what happens when your nervous system gets trained to track everyone around you, their needs, moods, energy, reactions, just to feel safe. You become hyper-attuned to everything outside of you and completely disconnected from what's happening inside. You absorb, you merge, you abandon yourself in the name of keeping the peace. But let me say this clearly. Peace is not self-abandonment. Love is not collapse. Energetic sovereignty means I can feel everything, but I only carry what's mine. I can hold compassion without becoming a container for someone else's chaos. I can love you deeply and still choose myself. It's not cold, it's clean. It's not avoidance, it's attunement to your truth, to your body, to your boundaries. The sovereign empath knows I don't need to explain my intuition. I don't need to perform to be safe. I don't need to overstay in misaligned spaces to prove I'm loving. That's not selflessness. That's self-betrayal. Energetic sovereignty means I hold my own field. I source my safety from within. I decide who has access to my energy and why. It's not about walls. It's about resonance. Because when you stop abandoning yourself, the kind of people you attract changes. The kind of conversations you're willing to have changes. The kind of relationships you say yes to. They rise to meet you. You're not here to be a sponge. You're here to be a signal, a transmission of clarity, a frequency of truth, a field that says, this is how energy moves when it's rooted in wholeness. That's sovereignty. And that's the invitation. So if you've been through this dynamic, the gaslighting, the confusion, the emotional exhaustion, I want to say this clearly. You are not broken. You are becoming. What happened to you wasn't fair. It wasn't easy, but it did shape you. And I don't mean in the way trauma usually gets talked about. I mean, it carved you into someone who knows how to feel. Someone who sees beyond the mask, someone who is no longer willing to shrink to be loved. That's a gift, and it came wrapped in pain, but it's still yours to claim. You don't have to keep carrying the story. You can carry the wisdom, the voice you found after you stopped explaining yourself, the boundaries you set without needing permission, the nervous system you rebuilt from the inside out. That's the real integration. Because integration isn't about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about letting the pain alchemize you into someone clearer, wiser, and more whole. It's about saying, I don't need to fix anyone. I don't need to save anyone. I just need to stand in my frequency and live from there. And from that place, you start calling in relationships that meet you. You stop explaining your sensitivity. You stop negotiating your truth. You become the version of you who knows how to hold energy, not out of obligation, but from embodiment. You become the one who ends the cycle for yourself, for your lineage, for the collective. This is how we evolve, one honest choice at a time, one boundary at a time, one remembrance at a time. You are not the wounded one. You are the one who woke up because of the wound. And now, you get to walk forward differently, not as someone trying to protect their heart, but as someone who finally realized it was never broken, just waiting for you to come home.